A federal judge this afternoon, one nominated by former President Biden, temporarily blocked President Donald Trump's recent executive order protecting children under the age of 19 from chemical and surgical mutilation, or what's called, what the left likes to call, gender-affirming care. It's experimental. I mean, it really is. It's experimental, and it's, you know, there's going to be a time we look back on this, and people are going to be, if the Lord tarries, they're going to look back on this, just like we're looking back on World War II and what the Nazis did in the experimentation, and others. I mean, it's grotesque. It is evil, pure evil. All right, we're going to finish talking about this. Meg Kilgannon joined me, Senior Fellow for Education Studies here at the Family Research Council. Meg.
Hi.
All right, thanks for joining me today. All right, so we touched on this. This affects three states. Three states.
Maryland, Massachusetts, and New York. And actually, no funds have been denied anyone at this point. It's just that they are in question.
So it's interesting. The judge says they had standing, but yet nobody's been affected by it.
But no one's been harmed, right?
Usually when this happens, like when a conservative goes to the court and the judge says, well, well, actually, it went all the way to, I think it was the Supreme Court on the issue of the abortion pill, mifepristone, that the pro-life doctors were told they didn't have standing because it hadn't impacted them.
Right. So we see a very different application of that doctrine here with this particular judgment. There have been no denial of funding. But the hospitals are looking at this and they're saying, well, we could lose this money, and so to avoid losing the money, maybe we need to deny these treatments.
So this ruling, as I understand it, is in effect for 14 days. It's a temporary stay.
Temporary stay.
They'll, argue their cases. But the Trump administration realized that they were going to have a lot of legal challenges to these executive orders.
Absolutely. It's one of the reasons that it was so great to see them issued so quickly.
Yeah, because
they're going to work their way through the courts, and there are many, many factors here.
Shock and awe. They couldn't keep up with them. All right, I want to switch gears to another topic that's near and dear to your heart. Today, the president's selection nominee for the Department of Education, Secretary of Department of Education, Linda McMahon, was in the Senate committee for her confirmation here. I want to play a clip of her opening statement. Clip 1, please.
I am confirmed the department will not stand idly by while Jewish students are attacked and discriminated against. It will stop forcing schools to let boys and men into female sports and spaces. And it will protect the rights of parents to direct the moral education of their children. The opportunity before us these next 4 years is momentous.
I mean, I hear that, and it's like, where's common sense been all this time? It's like, it really is. It's like a revival of common sense. Now, all we need now is a spiritual revival to follow through with this. But, I mean, this really is encouraging.
She did a really great job today at the hearing. The senators, the Democrat senators, asked a few tough questions, but they were very very subdued from their normal antics, especially on this topic.
This is one of their big topics.
This is one of their big topics. And the way that USAID funding funds a lot of the radical left in international affairs and some domestic affairs, the spending at the Department of Education funds the radical left in the United States.
They're talking about the indoctrination industrial complex.
Absolutely.
This is where all the kids are indoctrinated. This is how they keep a tether on the country and the culture. But what I like about what she said is she didn't pull any punches. She didn't dance around it. She just was very open, very clear as to stated goals and objectives. Now, I do believe she was asked about shutting down the Department of Education and what that would require.
And she didn't shy away from doing that either. She explained various scenarios in ways that you could wind it down, and she acknowledged that it will take an act of Congress to shut the Department of Education down, which, I guess these people on the Education Committee on the Democrat side are assuming that there won't be 60 votes for that. But I think there are some creative ways that we could potentially get to 60 votes for that if they are generous with the funding for particular programs.
Even if the president can't shut it down, I mean, he can empty it out.
Absolutely can empty it out. You absolutely can move functions from one place to another. There are lots of ways that you can manage this.
Would the executive branch have the authority to block grant educational funds, or would that require congressional action?
I think that there are pieces of it that you can block grant to the states, and I think they're certainly open to doing that. I mean, if someone wants to sue to stop money from coming from Washington to the states, I'd like to see that.
Well, the interesting thing is, we've talked about this before, that it's not, when you look at the overall amount of funding for education, it ranges somewhere from 7 to 10% of the educational funds come from the federal government. But, 80% of the regulations
Yes.
and guidance comes from the federal government.
Right, and that moral stance that comes from Washington, that bully pulpit, that is the sort of influence that comes from the government that has a profound impact on our schools.
What I think this is going to do, Meg, is we see this with the recent decision on Roe v. Wade, where you had the states very quickly lining up, either being pro-life or pro-abortion. As states have the ability to set the policies because the federal government gets out, there's going to be a clear line of distinction between the states, and I think it's going to have economic implications for those states. Those that choose conservative policies, pro-life policies, biblical policies, I think they're going to prosper. And the others are going to watch people, they're going to see taillights because people are going to head out of there.
Yeah, I think that's right, and I think we're already seeing that. I mean, companies that are moving back to America to invest in building things here, we see this. There's a lot of car manufacturing, for example, in Georgia and in South Carolina, right? So we see this already.
Right to work states, low taxes.
Yeah.
And mild winters. Yeah. All right, Meg Kilgannon, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.